The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee bans biological men from competing in women's sports. The group cites an executive order from President Trump signed back in February that threatens to cut funding for organizations allowing transgender athletes in women's sports. The new policy is listed under USOPC Athlete Safety. National governing bodies like sports like swimming and track and field are expected to comply with the directive. This follows a similar move by the NCAA, the governing body for college sports. For more now, we turn to Julie Gunlock, Director of Independent Women's Network. Julie, great to have you back. First off, what's your initial take of this move by the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee?
This is a victory for all women, but I have to say special shout out to Riley Gaines and Peyton McNabb and the many other female athletes who have fought so bravely for this. I also think President Trump deserves a pretty significant shout out. This would not have happened without Trump's executive order banning males from competing in women's competition. So, again, huge shout out to these athletes, these female athletes, but also President Trump. A great day for women today.
Exactly. President Trump signed that executive order back in February. And, but why do you think that the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee did the change right now?
Well, it's very interesting. They did it very quietly. The change appears on their website in a document called Athlete Safety Policy. But when you first look at it, it looks unchanged. You actually have to go into an addendum where they mention Executive Order 14201, but they don't say what that is. And then if you look that up, well, it's President Trump's keeping men out of women's sports. So you get the sense that they were reluctant, that they have actually said that they've done this to comply with the executive order, but it leaves a lot of questions. Will they continue this post a Trump administration, or will they go back to allowing men in women's sports?
And how far-reaching could this be? I mean, as we mentioned, the national governing bodies for both swimming and track and field, they're likely to follow suit, are they not?
Yes, absolutely. Look, this is the type of thing that is trend setting. So we will likely see, we've seen this with the women's fencing organization. They've recently come out and said, okay, we're going to keep men out of women's fencing. And we've seen some other bodies, some sports bodies come out and say, look, it's time for a change. But the Olympic Committee, the Olympic and Paralympic Committee, making this change, it's huge. And we will likely see more follow suit.
Yeah, I mean, this could also go to other countries, could it not as well?
Absolutely. Look, we have seen a change over the last, I would say, year. Women, again, like Riley Gaines, like Peyton McNabb, like so many of these women have fought for this. I mean, even just people like me who aren't necessarily in the athletic field have really fought for this. And I think it is getting louder. People are starting to see how unreasonable it is. Even Rahm Emanuel went on a news program recently and said, you know what, I'm not really comfortable with men and women's sports. So I think we're seeing a chipping away at this. And I think we're seeing a trend in the opposite direction too. And I say, a trend, it's really actually bringing common sense back to these decisions. This would have been unheard of, 10 years ago. And so it really is, I think, a return to common sense and to reality for the sports universe.
Well, Julie Gunlock, thank you so much for joining us, Director of the Independent Women's Network. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.